Let me tell you a little something about the main plot involving Princess Harriet and Prince Curtis. So we know Prince Curtis was a fake, and as I said, he was the way he was because he wanted to help Princess Harriet escape her marriage. I mean, after all, she was clearly not suited for it. Raoul met the real Prince Curtis and Princess Harriet when they were kids. Curtis treated him like a real friend, even though he was a mercenary. And Harriet was shy but kind, and over time she became comfortable around him too. But as Harriet grew older, she was forced into a political marriage with the future king of Febrania, a powerful country. Raoul knew that she didn't want it to go, but he couldn't stop it. And over the years, he secretly gathered information and realizes that Harriet was being mistreated. And in Rishi's fifth loop, meaning in the future timeline, Harriet was to be executed because she would be falsely accused of wasting her husband's kingdom's money. That led to war, and back then, Raoul deeply regretted not saving her. Now, in this timeline, he was determined to stop this arrangement and rescue her all by himself. But when Harriet comes to Galkian for Rishi and Arnold's wedding, her situation gets a little complicated. However, it gives Raoul a chance to help her escape. But it turns out that her husband's country, Febrania, was using her as a pawn to distribute fake money and damage Galkian's economy. Harriet didn't want it to go along with their plan, so she tried to warn Rishi by secretly slipping fake coins into her purse. But soon Febrania's knight found out that Harriet was trying to betray them, and to silence her, they kidnapped her and planned to kill her. Raoul, who had planned a secret escape, was now forced to fight back. And Rishi, along with Arnold, was also dragged into this because killing her could very much lead to a war that Rishi really didn't want it to happen. There was also this problem with Raoul that he didn't trust anyone and was always ready to do things his way rather than relying on others. Rishi knew that because she did spend her fifth loop with him, so when Harriet got kidnapped, she knew that he would go alone, and he drugged Rishi to get her off his tail. But our girl is just built different. She initially wanted to go alone, but Arnold wouldn't let that happen. He caught her sneaking and simply lifted her onto his horse, sat behind her, and rode off to pursue the kidnappers. As they speed away from the castle, they had to pass a busy port town before reaching the location of the smoke signal. She told Prince Arnold that there are chances that they set a trap along the way to prevent them from following them, and that they will most likely be archers with poisoned arrows. But he wasn't worried though, because if they shoot at them, he could just cut down the arrows. And soon enough, when they reached the port town, the arrows started coming their way. And Arnold transferred the reins to one hand and drew his sword with the other. With a dry snap, an arrow split into two in mid-air. A moment later, another one flew at them, and Arnold smacked it away too. Rishi noticed something else in those few seconds. Arnold was swinging his sword to protect her, not just from the arrows, but in a way that would prevent her from falling off the horse. His defense is perfect, but at this rate, they will get the both of us while I'm weighing him down. She thought and steadied her nerves with a breath and spoke to Arnold over her shoulders. Your Highness, could you hold me close with your other arm? He frowned, not completely understanding her, but she went with her plan and put one hand on the saddle and then lifted a knee onto it. Arnold then wrapped an arm around her and pulled her closer to him. What are you doing? He finally asked. Closer, Your Highness, she said, and got up onto her knees on the saddle and knocked an arrow to her bow. Hold me tight, please, she says, and Arnold sighed deeply when he got on to what Rishi was trying to do. She aimed at the rooftop where the arrow had come from. Please maintain a steady pace for me, she says, and Arnold did just that. A moment later, she aimed for the rooftop and let her arrow fly, hitting the archer. They decided that she would take care of the archers and he would protect her from the arrows. They charged to the port town, Arnold with his sword in hand and Rishi with her bow, throwing reports and instructions to one another as they each focused on their individual task. Arnold knocked away arrows and Rishi shot down the enemies as they approached the smoke signals. Then Arnold felt Rishi's gaze on him, his arm still circling around her torso. He grinned at her and asked in a challenging tone, "What do you want to do next?" Rishi squeaked in response. A rush raced down her spine. She felt like she could do anything if he fought alongside her. She had a plan, but Arnold didn't completely understand it. However, Rishi just concentrated on her archery, and the different route that she was talking about was through the window of a church. This scene was also something. It's written from Raoul's point of view, and it has to be one of my favorite ones from this novel. So they kidnapped Princess Harriet, and Raoul was also there at the church. And though Raoul's plan had messed up, but he still wanted to help Harriet to escape, even if his own life gets on line. He was fighting/negotiating with the Knights of Febrania when he notices something. A painting of of a goddess painted on the whole ceiling. But there was no time to admire that, as the glass in one of the church upper windows shattered, and the stained glass twinkled in the air as it fell, and a figure followed, shielding herself from the hail of the glass. To Raoul's shock, her coral hair fluttered in the air. A girl in a brown cloth fell toward him, but to him it was not like she was falling, but more like she was descending from the sky. Then she struck her knife at Raoul's hand. Surprise had loosened his grip, so his knife flew halfway across the church floor. The girl spun around, whipped her sword as if dancing, and charged at Fabranian knights, and soon the remaining 3 knights fell to the floor. Raoul watched all this happen, dumbfolded to the core. He finally snapped out of it when Rishi called his name. But this wasn't possible, he thought. She couldn't be here, as he had seen her drink the lace tea himself just a while ago, and he didn't understand why she hadn't came charging through the door, but crashed through the window instead. Didn't I tell you that if you were going to save Lady Harriet, I wanted to help you? I can't let you sacrifice yourself just because you want to rescue her. She said, that's why I'm here. I'm here to save you. The words rendered him dizzy. Then she started to worry about him and started asking if it hurts anywhere or if he had taken the poison. Wait a second, there is no time to be worrying about me. That's not all the Fabranian knights. He was sure that his subordinates wouldn't screw up and get caught, which meant that the remaining dozen or so knights were still watching outside the church. He was warning her that if she doesn't get out of there, she won't be safe either. Then suddenly the church door swung open, silencing Raoul. He drew a knife and ran in front of Rishi. But the intruder was no Fabranian enemy. You got to be kidding me, he said. The intruder that came there was no other than Arnold. A broad and dazzling smile bloomed on Rishi's face, her almond jam-like eyes sparkling as if she were looking at a precious treasure. What are you doing here? Raoul asked. And what about the knights? Already taken care of. Behind the door, all the Fabranian remaining knights were spawned out on the ground, unconscious. This can't be happening. I told my men in town to stop Arnold if they saw him. Raoul was still not believing of how much power those two can have. I'm sorry, Raoul. I borrowed your bow and arrow and knocked out the rest of your men. Rishi apologizes innocently. Arnold walked past him and pulled back Rishi's hood. Are you hurt? He asked. No, as you can see, there's not a scratch on me. And Raoul was utterly baffled. You two are monsters. Husband and wife, both, he said, and Rishi's cheeks flared. We're not married yet. He couldn't believe it that after all that, she was blushing like a shy little maiden. I don't know if you liked his character or not, but to me, he was a pretty solid side character. And honestly, I was really happy with both Raoul and Harriet's character development. She sighed in relief and looked up at him. Prince Arnold is really amazing, she thought with a smile. He steadied her with wide eye, then frowned and asked, why do you look so happy just seeing my face? Which makes her cover her cheeks with her hands. Did I look happy just now? She asked. You looked the same way when I entered the church earlier too. She couldn't recall the face she made when she saw him. Then she reminded her about the fight they were supposed to be having, and asked if she was satisfied with it. That's right, we're supposed to be in the middle of a very important fight, she recalled, and Arnold taunted her with his smile. Looking at him, she stuttered and said, I'm still not satisfied. There are plenty more that I must say on that subject. You better brace yourself, he said. Same to you, Your Highness. She leveled a glare at him. Declaration of the war. Then she went over to check Harriet. I have to say it was a good volume, but the epilogue and the bonus scenes made it even better. So in the epilogue, Arnold walked down the sunset-strained beach and met Rishi. Oliver told me that you requested my presence. Did something happen? He asked. She wanted to make up after their fight. Her request really left Arnold speechless. Lately, I've been doing a lot of thinking by myself while you've been busy, Your Highness. She clenched her dress. I've come to realize that I've been very selfish. Arnold denies it without a second thought. Then he told her that the methods you've taken to gain her were very inexcusable. Reaching out to her, he took a stray lock of her hairs behind her ear. Then he spoke slowly and softly. Abducting a bride from a foreign country as a hostage, it's the method that my father has always employed. Now, I'm pretty sure you remember that Arnold had told her once before that his father kept other countries under his control by demanding female hostages and marrying them, and that he always hated those things. Yet he says that he ended up employing the same method to make Rishi his wife. There was no distinct emotion on his face except for his eyes, where a whole storm of emotions were flashing past. I forced you to give me your hand and steal your future. Rishi's breath caught up. There's nothing more I can ask of you. I don't have the right. It seemed like he was in pain but was trying to ignore it. I don't need anything more, he added. I had no words for this scene except the fact that he deserves the whole world, and the fact that I really do love his character. And I'm sure that Arnold had never allowed himself to want anything before. He had lived without desires, and without those desires being fulfilled, fulfilled his whole life. Up until now, he had been the crown prince of great nations, but he could probably count on one hand the number of things that he'd obtained for himself. And Rishi too could tell as much even without him saying so directly. The point I have reflected on the most is just that, Your Highness, she interrupted, earning a questionable frown from him. I realize that you do not want anything of me. The reason you think that way is also because of me. I thought back to the moment that you proposed to me, and I remember I replied, I reject your proposal, didn't I? She asked, and he simply says a yes. Then she casted her gaze to the sand, took a deep breath, and then met Arnold's gaze once more. I'd like to redo that proposal. Before he could respond, Rishi reached out for Arnold's left hand and intertwined her fingers with his, desperately trying to convey her feelings to him. I apologize for my response back then. Also, I'm asking you. Mimicking Arnold's actions from the night of the proposal, she pulled his left hand to her mouth and steeled her nerves to kiss the base of Arnold's ring finger. She could feel her cheeks burning, so she hid her face in his hand. When she felt calm, she locked her eyes with him and finished, to become my husband. Even her choice of words was an echo of Arnold's, and I'm pretty sure he noticed because his eyes widened. What are you? He asked. There, she creaked, her face bright red. Now both of us wish for this engagement, so that means you don't have to whisk me to Galkin against my will. This was what Rishi had meant when she spoke of her selfishness. She'd been turning it over and over in her mind in the last couple of days when it finally hits her. Her rejection of Arnold's proposal was the source of his guilt, and her counter-proposal should have undone it. Yet Arnold gazed at her in silence. Did that not work? She thought. I want to do everything in my power to grant any desire you might have of me. Rishi scowled. I want to spoil you in the same way you spoiled me, Prince Arnold. If Rishi were to take a realistic view on matters, things probably wouldn't change between them, but Arnold's heart remained unknown to Rishi's until she found a way in. But as Rishi began to formulate the wish in her heart, Arnold pulled her intertwined hand toward him, and Rishi collided with his chest. He threw his other arm over her back and encircled her as if he would never let her go, whispering his acceptance in her ears. His voice was so low and husky, but she could hear every single word clearly. Will you stand by my side as my wife? Then she says, I'm already here, aren't I? To which he replied, not yet. We're not officially married yet. But in all seriousness, there was nothing that she could do about that. In both Rishi's homeland and in this one, women can't marry until they were 16. And Rishi's 16th birthday wasn't for another 3 weeks. Since she couldn't grant his wish immediately, Rishi settled on a promise. I will become your wife, Prince Arnold. Hearing her, his embrace tightened. But it wasn't painful. He says, say it one more time. It occurred to Rishi that this was Arnold's way of making his desire known to her. If you don't mind, I'll repeat it as often as you like, Prince Arnold, she says. Then she went over to what she said and realized that it made no sense. It was irrational to respond to a marriage proposal again and again. So she apologizes, and Arnold smiled faintly, saying that he wants to hear it over and over again. Her cheeks flushed deep scarlet. She pressed her forehead against his to hide them, but she also didn't want it to bother him by clinging in such a way. She apologizes again. I don't mind, he replied, and gave her a comforting pat on the back before saying, I think you should put a little more meat on your bones though. Hearing him, her head almost shot up, but Arnold had her in a firm hold that she couldn't move. Are you saying I'm scrawny? She was so close to getting hurt, so he explained himself, and after he was done, he rested his head on Rishi's shoulders and murmured, I feel as if I'm too rough with you. I'll break you. Shock and then amusement ripped through Rishi. I won't break, it's okay. When Arnold didn't respond, Rishi realizes that he was unconvinced. She squeezed Arnold with the same grip he had around her to make her point, but Arnold patted her back in understanding and slowly pulled away from her. I'll be careful, he said. Apparently, her attempt to convince him of her hardiness had been unsuccessful, and clearly their fight was not that successful either. But oh well, I love them like this more. At least she had been satisfied with their patch-up. The thought made her smile, and she gazed up at Arnold. It's getting windy. We should go back, he said, holding out his hand to Rishi. His offer to escort her was completely natural, but it somehow flustered her. She took his hand, trying not to let him see her nerves, and the two of them walked off together. She jokes about putting on too much meat on her bones that she can't fit into wedding dress, and he says that he'll call as many tailors as needed if that ever happened, until the dress fits her perfectly. When you say that with such a straight face, it doesn't sound like a joke, Prince Arnold. It's kind of scary. She complains, but their light banter warmed her heart. Now, I'm not going to lie, they really are a perfect couple. And as some questions are still not answered, I'm really excited about the next volume. And I promise I'll try not to take forever to post them. Alright, that was all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to me. Take care of yourself and goodbye.
baby, I have a taste. All the highs and the lows, no, you'll never be the same. I don't really wanna hurt you, but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side, maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change.